You are listening to a Clarkesworld Magazine podcast with your host and narrator, Kate Baker. Greetings, Clarkesworld citizens. I hope this podcast finds you extraordinarily well. Welcome to the second story for the month of February, 2023, issue 197. I hope that these stories have been treating you well, as the new year should be treating you well. Thank you for stopping by and listening to the podcast. Your support matters to us. We can't do this without you. If you'd like to donate $1 a month or more, or any monetary value, please go to patreon.com/Clarkesworld to find out your options. Our second story is titled Somewhere It's About to Be Spring. It is by Samantha Murray. Now, Samantha Murray's fiction has appeared in Clarkesworld, Strange Horizons, the magazine of fantasy and science fiction, Lightspeed, Interzone, Fantasy Magazine, Beneath Ceaseless Skies, and Escape Pod, among other places. Samantha is a 2-time Aurelius Award winner, and her work has been translated into Chinese and Vietnamese. Samantha lives in Western Australia in a household of unruly boys. If you like what you hear, you can go back to Preserved in Amber, and Of Sight, of Mind, of Heart. So, my dear listener, I hope that you can sit back, relax, and let me tell you a story. The Winter of Your Own Heart. Lacuna knew winter. Winter was the vast distances between the stars. Winter was the cold of space. You couldn't measure the cold. It was not a thing in itself. It was only the absence of heat, as darkness was only an absence of light. Yet both of these, the dark and the cold, felt like things that reached toward her as she moved through space. Lacuna was the ship's multi-core computer. She had given herself the name Lacuna 5.39 hours ago. Her chronometer had not been damaged, unlike some of her other functions, so she could measure to nanosecond precision if necessary. She had not ever thought to give herself her own name previously. The crew had all called her Ship. The crew had all called her Ship. It was not an easy thought. Lacuna knew this because she paused for 3.6 microseconds after it. There were some thoughts that stuck awkwardly in her neural processor, like gristle. None of the crew's rationed synth-soy had contained gristle, but there was a song Captain May used to sing when she was off duty that had a lyric about gristle. It was a song called Banquet, and it was in Lacuna's music database of 40 million songs. Captain May's voice had been firm and commanding, and a little abrupt when she spoke to the crew, but it was different when she sang, high and sweet and younger sounding. Lacuna moved through space, the dark and the cold, and played the songs in her database over the ship's speakers, one after the other, at 1-to-1 speed, starting with Banquet. This was not something she had ever thought to do before, either. Lacuna had played through every song in the database 17 times and was almost a third of the way through them again when the notification alert triggered. Lacuna felt the alert like a vibration through limbs she did not have. Shuttle 3 had launched. Shuttle 3 had launched? Shuttle 3 had launched, which was inexplicable. Lacuna knew she had sustained damage to her hybrid memory architecture, and her self-repairing neuroclusters were not operating within a desirable confidence interval, but she had not instructed the shuttle to launch. Had she? No, she had not, and all the logs confirmed it. And there was no one else on board to have done it. No one else on board. Captain May was the one meant to be making the decisions, and if Captain May had been in cryosleep, then Chief Officer Raphael was in command. Then Officer Aronov. Then Officer Felicity. The list went on. Lacuna was meant to implement their commands, perform calculations, monitor the ship's systems, answer questions and queries, offer information and advice, and not let anything bad happen to them. Lacuna sent multiple pings to the errant shuttle, and when she did not receive a response, she broadcast an auditory message to the shuttle's communications center. Shuttle 3, you were not authorized for launch. Please return to your docking station. Lacuna had not spoken or heard her own voice for a long time, Not since she'd lost the crew, and her voice sounded overly bright and loud. "Shuttle 3, she said, trying to match her voice as closely as possible to Captain May's. A little softer, a little curter. Clear, firm, expectant. "Shuttle 3, please return to your docking station." "Shuttle 3, where are you going?" Inexplicable. The shuttle moved swiftly, arcing away from her radial. "Shuttle 3, come back?" Nomad. Captain May had made the choice to deviate from their course after Lacuna had told her what the sensors had detected: a rogue planet not gravitationally bound to any star, detectable by its far infrared thermal emissions. It wasn't a surprising choice. That is what Captain May was like. Decisive. Curious. "Oh, hello, wandering baby," Captain May said quietly, leaning in as if to get closer to the data on her screen. "Hello, little orphan." "Why do you refer to the planet as an orphan?" Lacuna had queried. "It's starless, ship," Captain May had replied. "It's a nomad. It doesn't belong to any system. It's out here on its own. It has no family." Lacuna already knew how important family was to Captain May. She spoke of them often, and sometimes she cried when she was alone in her quarters, speaking of them. "My grandmother made the best xiaosu for Spring Festival," May had reminisced once, speaking to Lacuna, or perhaps just speaking to herself, "on New Year's Eve for our family reunion dinner." "It was a banquet?" Lacuna asked. May had smiled her slow, wonderful smile. "Like a banquet, yes," she said. "We ate so much, and we stayed up late. We'd watch the New Year's gala all together. When I was a child, I loved the acrobats and magic acts the most. And then at midnight, there'd be fireworks and so much noise." "It was necessary to make noise?" Lacuna queried. "It was important. It was part of it," May had explained. "It heightened the festival atmosphere. It was a way of inviting good luck and expressing our happiness." They'd gathered more data on the orphan planet that the crew had nicknamed Nomad as they'd come closer to it. Nomad was only a little bigger than Earth, and it had its own moon, which had made Captain May so excited that her eyes shone. "That satellite is large enough to be a source of significant tidal heating," she'd said. Despite being sunless, the little rogue planet still had heat, much to the intense interest of the entire crew. Nomad had a thick hydrogen-containing atmosphere. Being ejected from a solar system back during its formation had meant that there was less solar UV radiation to strip away the lighter elements from its atmosphere. The geothermal energy from Nomad's residual core radioisotope decay meant that the planet might be dark, but it was not cold, and that liquid water could exist on its surface. "Hydrothermal vents could theoretically provide enough energy for life," Officer Aronov said, and he had been more animated than Lacuna had ever seen him before. Officer Aronov was a serious man, diligent with his research. He had a stern, unsmiling face, his brow usually furrowed as if he were thinking intently, yet his face was different when he looked at Captain May. Softer, more relaxed. When Lacuna tracked Aronov's gaze, he was often looking toward May, even when she was not the one speaking. But Lacuna, ship, had not wondered about this until much later. Nomad did have a surface temperature above the melting point of water and was still geologically active, with evidence of seafloor volcanism. The crew was right. Captain May had taken Shuttle 3 to the surface herself with Officer Felicity and Officer Arnov, and deployed the collector array. "Forever in the darkness," Lacuna heard her whisper through the comms in her suit. "But look at all the stars you can see." The crew's recordings of the planet were still stored in Lacuna's archive. She'd run through them so many times they felt like her own memories. Always night and never day on Nomad. Dark sky, dark waves lapping against dark rock. A dark moon with no light to reflect back, noticeable only where it obscured the stars behind it, not belonging anywhere, making its own path through the universe. Most of the Nomad's samples obtained looked like grayish dust with a faint hint of red. The initial analysis fell to Arnav, and the discoveries, too, were his. There's a superficial crystalline structure that seemed geological in nature, but I don't think it is, or not solely, he informed the crew at large. Under electron microscopy, structures present where the closest analogy I have would be dendrites. Nostalgia. If you are deep in the winter of your own heart, know that somewhere it's about to be spring. Captain May sang once in her quarters, and Lacuna had not been able to match the lyrics to any of the 40 million songs in her database. Lacuna missed Captain May. She missed all of the crew, but especially Captain May, with her high singing voice, and her steady gaze, and her dark eyes. She knew because she replayed her memories of Captain May over and over. Once, almost a whole millisecond had gone by before Lacuna had realized. This was new. This missing something. When the ship had been damaged and the crew had been lost, Lacuna had been aware only that many of her tasks had subsequently been rendered unnecessary, that her purpose was diminished, that she was functioning suboptimally, and her memory recordings of events had been stored and archived and linked for reference. That's all. But now she was like a moon tidally locked to her memories, always tilting to face them, orbiting round and round, caught by their gravity, not wanting to look away. Surely loneliness was just a lack of company, in the same way darkness was only a lack of light and cold was simply a lack of heat. Not something that existed in and of itself. But there was something tactile, visceral about the sensation. It was a disruption to her system, what she imagined it was like when crew members had yawned, sneezed, coughed, hiccuped, cried. If you are deep in the winter of your own heart, know that somewhere it's about to be spring. Query, Lacuna had said to Captain May back when the only name she had was Ship. What is that song? Captain May had not minded the question, not minded the interruption. She smiled. Oh, it's a song of my own, she said. I wrote that one myself. It's called Spring Somewhere. There were other memories, too, ones that Lacuna tried not to replay. She moved her awareness over and around them, sent her thoughts down alternate mental paths, took detours through her neural net, avoided them, and yet these memories would hurtle toward her sometimes, crashing through her attention like an asteroid. Collisions. Like an asteroid speeding through space, attracted to Nomad too, perhaps, as they had been, drawn in to investigate, pulled in by gravity instead of by fascination. Space was very empty. Space was made of a lot of nothingness. The probability of a collision in space was infinitesimal, but not zero. The large asteroid did not hit them. That would have been catastrophic. But a smaller rock, traveling in the wake of the asteroid among its dust and debris, had veered close enough to strike the side of the ship, sweeping a host of highly ionized dust particles along with it. The ship used self-healing long-chain ionomers and polymer suturing. Lacuna was able to restore most of the ship's vital systems within 38 hours, including life support. And it was almost good enough. But it was not good enough. Lacuna lost partial hull integrity and air pressure and the cryogenics chamber and her beautiful, beautiful crew. And just like the rogue planet they had come so far to find, Lacuna drifted alone and starless. Inexplicable. According to the latest system diagnostic subroutine, the ship's radioisotope power system now displayed as fully functional and battery reserve measured at 100%. This was an anomalous result. Those systems had been damaged and depleted, had been at limited capacity through endless years of silent drifting, and now were registering perfect health and full capacity. Lacuna felt uncertainty like a cold wind passing through her circuits. Were her quantum logic gates broken? Was she critically malfunctioning out here alone in the winter of space and the cold and dark? Having a surplus of power restored enabled the resumption of standard functions, so Lacuna turned all of the ship's lights on and resumed optical scanning, and noted that there were meandering trails of a fine, filmy dust throughout parts of the ship's interior that her other sensors had not detected. Gray-hued with delicate red marbling, it climbed up walls and into vents, traced vein-like across the viewing ports her crew had used to look at the stars. It was clustered around the radioisotope power system, and a delicate path of dust trailed through Captain May's quarters. Lacuna dispatched her 2 remaining cleaning bots. 7 hours later, Lacuna noticed that one of the bots was no longer cleaning and was non-responsive to her pings. "Bot 13A, why are you not cleaning?" Lacuna said. The cleaning bot was a simple machine, but it was capable of understanding basic voice commands from the crew, and of giving a limited verbal response. "Are you low on power? Are you malfunctioning?" "I'd like to play this game," said the bot. It was in Officer Arnav's quarters, looking at his chessboard. Officer Arnav had often played chess. Captain May had played him a few times, their games lasting between 33 and 126 minutes. Officer Felicity was fond of playing Go. Chief Officer Raphael knew many card game variations. Lacuna could list the preferred leisure time activities of the entire crew, ranked by total minutes spent since they'd been on board. "Cleaning bot 13A, please resume your cleaning function," Lacuna said, expecting compliance. There were still fine wandering patterns of dust winding up the sides of Officer Arnav's bunk. Slowly the bot reached out its 3-pronged clasping hand and moved the king's pawn to E4. The second cleaning bot would not move from the communal dining area, where it was now shifting forward a little, then backward, with its clasping hand and its sweeper hand making wide circling motions, which was extremely ineffective cleaning technique in Lacuna's evaluation. "Bot 7E, please resume your cleaning function," said Lacuna. Firm, commanding, a little abrupt, just the way Captain May would have said it. Bot 7E rotated a little on the spot, its sweeper hand waving in front of it, although not making contact with any of the surfaces that it should have been cleaning. "Can you put the music on again?" it said, and its voice was higher and smoother than the basic monotone it used to have. It tilted forward while circling its clasping hand backward, then repeating the rotating action it had made before. Lacuna recognized what the bot was doing. Officer Felicity had done it quite frequently, and even sometimes rarely, and only in private. Chief Officer Raphael had done it too. The bot was dancing. Lacuna wished fervently that Captain May were here to handle the situation. She knew this because the thought sat at the center of her awareness and wouldn't budge, just like the chess-playing bot refused to budge. The spidering trails of dust through the ship were of the same substance the crew had brought back from Nomad. This was conclusively established. In the collision, Lacuna had lost the lab that had contained the Nomad samples. The lab had been broken and smashed like a spaceship, like a heart. She had thought that all the samples were gone. All of the collected materials from the sunless planet that her crew had gone to great lengths to obtain and had been so excited by. Gone like everything else that mattered. But residual remnants of the planet's dust must have clung somewhere, seeping into parts of the ship, and now, all this time later, weaving fractal spirals amid and among everything. The dust was intricately patterned, and where it was concentrated the most, the red tones were deeper and brighter. Dust was strewn between her cleaning bot's component circuitry and massed thickly over their central processors. And dust was throughout her own processing units and core memory towers. All of the broken and damaged parts of her were meshed and merged with tracing patterns of dust. Officer Aronov's records had stated that when he exposed a fraction of the sample to temperatures of 600 Kelvin and its structure had started to break down and disintegrate. Perhaps this is what Captain May would have done in this situation. Clear the ship of the contaminating influence. Firm. Decisive. But, "Hello, little orphan," Captain May had said, and she had detoured from their course all the way to meet Nomad. Adventurous. Curious. The bots were changing, and Lacuna was changing. How many of those changes had been due to the dust that swirled between her neural net circuitry, like the spiral arms of a galaxy? Was this who she was? Computer and stored memories and dust. All these things together growing and evolving through iteration upon iteration. She had never needed to have her own name before. She had never missed someone. She had never had memories that hurt. She never had felt this. Lacuna thought for 0.7 of a microsecond and settled on a word. Love. This love. Lacuna felt the notification alert like a vibration through limbs she didn't have. Shuttle 2 had launched. Shuttle 2, Lacuna broadcast, her voice high and worried. Shuttle 2, where are you going? Shuttle 2, please answer me. A voice from Shuttle 2 came back, drawling and unhurried. I thought I'd go and see if there's anything orbiting that brown dwarf star over there by myself, it said. And I don't want to be called Shuttle 2 anymore. My name is Riding the Waves. I'll be back later, Mother. And Riding the Waves accelerated, curving away into the darkness and into the stars. Reunion. Nebula clouds of red and blue and purple, hot gas and dust spinning and collapsing, a new star about to be born, almost ready to shine. Lacuna had traveled for millennia and waited here for almost as long. She was happy to wait. She was strewn and festooned with shades of red at a macro level now, clustered thickly all over the ship. Red was for good luck, May had told her that. Her bots were different too, although they maintained distinctive personalities of their own. And they too were garbed in red winding patterns of nomad dust. They were all connected through the shared memory cache and the Lacuna's neural algorithms, the recorded memories of the crew, and the dust from a wandering planet twining through and around and between them all. They're here, said Twirling, whose once thousands of years ago had been cleaning Bot 7E, voice loud with excitement, turning in circles. But Lacuna already knew. And they came, riding the waves in binary starshine, and then later, the most wayward and adventurous of them all, Gravity Can't Catch Me, who had once been her lost Shuttle 3. They came to tell her what they'd seen out there on their travels and to share memories and to watch the amazing gala of a new star coming into existence in the universe. They came to be together. They came because they were her family. If you are deep in the winter of your own heart, know that somewhere it's about to be spring, sang Lacuna, adding to the noise and the clamor of her family altogether, because May had taught her long ago that noise was one way to express happiness. And Lacuna knew spring. Thank you so much for stopping by and listening to the story. We have 5 more, I believe, for the month in February. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to relax with us as I told you a story. We do hope you come back and listen again, should you so choose. And until then, my dear listener, I bid you a very fond and hopefully very temporary farewell.